Ayaan Khan was now a name known around the globe. His last bench initiative had empowered over 50,000 students. His water purifiers were saving lives. He had spoken at the United Nations, met presidents, and appeared on magazine covers. But with success came a new kind of pressure: money, power, and politics. One morning, while attending a summit in Dubai, Ayaan received a message from a powerful corporate group. "Join us. We'll manufacture your devices on a global scale. You'll be a millionaire within weeks, but we need full rights." It was tempting, very tempting. The company was offering everything he never had: private jets, 5-star hotels, global fame, but there was a catch. They planned to sell his purifier at a high price, making it unaffordable for the poor it was originally meant to help. Ayaan stared at the contract in front of him. His hand held the pen. His heart held the memory of dusty streets, thirsty children, and his parents, who had sacrificed so much for his education. "You deserve this, Ayaan," said one of his advisors. "You can help more people with more money." Or, he thought, will I lose what I started this for? That night, Ayaan couldn't sleep. He stepped out onto the balcony of his hotel. Below, the city lights sparkled like stars, but his eyes drifted to the small slum area just beyond the skyline. Children playing near a dirty canal. Mothers boiling unsafe water. He made his decision: the press conference the next morning. Ayaan held a press conference. The media expected him to announce the big corporate deal. Instead, he stood up and said, "I didn't sit on the last bench to become rich. I sat there because no one listened to boys like me. I won't sell my silence now, not for gold, not for glory." Gasps filled the room. The investors were furious. Some media mocked him, but others called him a hero. That same week, Ayaan partnered with a non-profit tech foundation. They agreed to manufacture his purifiers without profit and make them available in crisis zones, free of cost. A new mission begins instead of chasing fame. Ayaan returned to the field. He visited war-torn Syria, flood-affected Bangladesh, and villages in Somalia. He wasn't in suits anymore. He wore mud-stained boots, sat with grieving families, and drank from the very purifiers he had built. In one camp, a young girl named Sana held his hand and said, "I don't know who you are, but this is the first time I drank water that didn't make me sick." Shukriya Bhai. Ayaan Khan was no longer just a name in his town. He had become a symbol of hope. His invention, the solar-powered water purifier, had spread across more than 20 countries. Refugee camps, remote villages, disaster zones, all were using his device. News channels called him the boy who gave water to the world. But Ayaan didn't care for fame. What truly mattered to him was something more personal: his promise to his parents, to his roots, and to the millions of children who still sat on the last benches, unheard, unnoticed, and often underestimated. One morning, while working at his innovation lab in Nairobi, Kenya, he received a phone call. It was from his old school, Oak Ridge High. "Ayaan," said the principal, "we're starting a program for underprivileged students. We'd like you to help us design it, or better yet, come visit and inspire them in person." He agreed immediately. Returning to Oak Ridge when Ayaan stepped back into the halls of Oak Ridge High, everything looked smaller, yet more meaningful. He walked past classrooms, saw kids laughing in corridors, some in clean uniforms, some in torn shoes, but all full of dreams. The school had arranged a special event in the auditorium. Hundreds of students had gathered. Posters of Ayaan's work were everywhere. A small boy, no older than 13, came up to him shyly and asked, "Sir, I sit on the last bench too. Is it true that people like us can also change the world?" Ayaan knelt down, looked him in the eye, and said, "Not only can you change the world, one day, you might save it." He was invited to speak on stage. This time, he didn't need notes. His message came straight from his heart. "I wasn't the smartest in the room. I wasn't the loudest either. But I had something powerful, a reason to try. When life puts you at the back, remember, it's only so you can see everything clearly before you move forward. Never be ashamed of where you sit. Be proud of where you stand." Tears filled the eyes of many students. Some teachers remembered the boy who had once walked there. Hall silently, his eyes full of questions. The legacy begins inspired by the visit. Ayaan launched the Last Bench Initiative, a global mentorship program for students from low-income backgrounds. The program offered scholarships, online classes, mental health support, and even mentorship from engineers, doctors, and scientists. He called it a light for the ones sitting in the shadows. Within 2 years, over 50,000 students had joined the initiative across Asia, Africa, and South America. Some became coders, others became environmentalists, one became a poet, another started her own startup, but all of them, like Ayaan, had once been invisible, until someone believed in them. Final scene, the letter years later. Ayaan received a letter from a girl in rural Pakistan. "Dear Ayaan Bhai, I used to feel like a mistake, like I wasn't meant to be anything. Then I heard your story. Today, I teach science in my village school. I sit in the front row now, but only because you once sat in the last. Thank you for showing us the way." Ayaan folded the letter and smiled. He didn't need awards. He didn't need applause. He had done what very few ever do. He had turned his pain into purpose, and his silence into a voice that echoed across the world. Moral of Part 3. True greatness is not in being the first. It is in helping others. Rise. A single light may not brighten the world, but it can spark 1,000 more. And sometimes, the boy on the last bench becomes the one who rewrites the future for millions. Ayaan Khan shocked Oak Ridge High by winning the science fair. From being the unnoticed boy on the last bench, he had grown into a confident young man, now studying at Imperial College London, one of the best universities in the world. But life in London wasn't easy. He was thousands of miles from home. His parents still worked hard back in their small town, and he was surrounded by students who came from powerful families, children of CEOs, diplomats, and scientists. One of them was Victor, a brilliant but arrogant student who never missed a chance to remind Ayaan of where he came from. "You're from some dusty village in South Asia, right?" Victor would smirk. "What are you doing in a place like this?" Ayaan would quietly smile and return to his books. He had learned not to let voices like Victor's get inside his head, but deep down, the pressure was real. Then one day, an opportunity arrived. The university announced a global innovation summit, a chance for students to present solutions to the world's most urgent problems: climate change, hunger, poverty, pollution. The winner would receive funding to launch their idea. As a real-world project, it was a dream for someone like Ayaan. For weeks, he worked late nights in the lab. His idea, a portable solar-powered water purifier, a cleaner, smarter version of the original one he built back in school. This new version could fit in a backpack, charge using sunlight, and purify water in minutes. Ideal for disaster zones, refugee camps, and remote villages. But there was a catch. The final presentation would be live in front of global experts, media, and investors. No slides, no hiding. Just a stage, a spotlight, and Ayaan's voice. He was terrified. Public speaking had always been his weakness. His voice would shake, his hands would sweat. In school, even answering a simple question had felt like a mountain. The night before the summit, Ayaan sat alone in his dorm room. He looked at a picture of his parents, smiling, proud, poor, but full of dignity. He remembered his father's words: "Beta, the world may not listen to you at first, but never stay silent when your heart knows something can help others." The next morning, Ayaan stepped onto the stage. He wasn't wearing a fancy suit. He wasn't the most confident, but when he began to speak, something changed. He talked about his childhood, about walking miles for clean water, about seeing children fall sick from dirty streams. He showed his device, demonstrated how it worked, and most of all, he spoke with heart. The audience was silent, not because they weren't interested, but because they were moved. When he finished, there was a long pause. Then a standing ovation. Later that evening, Ayaan was declared the global winner. A tech foundation offered to fund his project. Across 10 developing countries, he would now lead a team of engineers, scientists, and volunteers. The last bench boy was now a voice of change. Victor, who had also presented, came up to him and said something unexpected. "You were right. It's not where you come from, it's where you choose to go." Epilogue. Back home, a few months later, Ayaan returned to his hometown. He was greeted like a hero. Children waved banners. His old teachers had tears in their eyes. He visited his school, walked into his old classroom, and sat for a moment on that familiar last bench. Then he smiled, stood up, and walked to the front, not just of the class, but of life itself. In a quiet town in northern England, nestled between misty hills and sleepy streets, was a school called Oak Ridge High. Among its many students, there was a boy named Ayaan, a quiet, shy teenager who always sat on the last bench in every class. Teachers barely noticed him. Students laughed at his old clothes and thick glasses. Even when he answered correctly in class, his voice was so soft that it was often drowned in whispers and giggles. But Ayaan didn't mind. He had a secret. Every evening, after school, while others played football or scrolled through their phones, Ayaan would sit in the town's library, lost in books. He read about stars, machines, animals, history, anything he could find. His eyes sparkled when he discovered something new. At home, life wasn't easy. His father was a mechanic and his mother worked in a garment factory. They barely made enough, but they always encouraged Ayaan to study. One day, Oak Ridge High announced a science fair. Students were invited to present an innovative idea. The winner would get a scholarship to a top university in London. The entire school buzzed with excitement. Everyone was forming groups, sharing ideas. No one asked Ayaan to join. They assumed he had nothing to offer, so Ayaan worked alone. For weeks, he studied, experimented, and built a small device, a water purifier made from recycled materials. It could clean dirty water using simple, cheap components. His hands were full of cuts, his eyes tired, but his heart was full of hope. Finally, the day of the science fair arrived. Students came with shiny robots, flashy posters, and expensive equipment. Ayaan came with a small cardboard box and a quiet smile. When the judges stopped at his table, They looked confused. "What is this?" one of them asked. Ayaan took a deep breath and explained his project. He showed how dirty water entered the box and came out clean. He talked about how millions of people in poor villages couldn't afford clean water and how his device could help. The judges were silent for a moment. Then, one of them, a scientist from a major university, said, "You built this on your own." Ayaan nodded. They walked away without another word. The other students laughed, as if a cardboard box could win. Someone muttered. The results were announced in the school hall. Third place, not Ayaan. Second place, not Ayaan. The students smirked, and the first prize, the principal announced, goes to Ayaan Khan for his low-cost water purifier. The hall fell silent. Ayaan walked to the stage slowly, unsure if he had heard right. The principal smiled and handed him the certificate. The judges applauded. One of them said, "Innovation isn't about money or fame, it's about solving real problems. And Ayaan's project might just save lives." From that day on, Ayaan was no longer the boy on the last bench. He was invited to speak at science exhibitions, got the scholarship, and eventually went on to become an environmental engineer, designing clean water systems for villages around the world. Years later, when he was asked what kept him going, Ayaan simply said, "I was never the loudest in the room, but I believed in the power of small ideas with big hearts."